command line interface basics. Yeah, hey, my name is Chris. I'm here at the Auto Fab Lab, managing the lab and helping people to work with the machines, and also explaining other things like today the command line and programming related issues. And it seems that we have guests. Just a second, I'll switch back to.
Hey, how are you, man?
LA, good that you are here. Okay, so today we are talking about command line interface, and before I begin, I would like to show you these slides. So this is the agenda for today. I'm gonna just quickly introduce you to what is command line, and how to get to it in different operating systems like Mac, Linux, and Windows. And then I'm gonna show you some basic commands. And this is a part of Fab Academy Thursdays. So it's a lecture series to make your Fab Academy life a lot easier. So for this month, so the first 3 lectures are about command line, HTML basics, and Git version control. But today we are talking only about command line. And then don't forget that there is the applications for Fab Academy 2020 are now open. So follow the link that you see on the slide now and look for Auto Fab Lab to join. And so yeah, now about the command line interface in general. So just a brief information introduction about what it is. So it is a text-based user interface that is used to view and manage computer files. And command line interfaces are also called command line user interfaces. Console user interfaces and character user interfaces, or the shell, the terminal, and so on. And as you know, you probably have heard the term DOS, the early ages of Windows operating system. So before there was Windows, there was DOS. And it stands for Disk Operating System. And basically, it was a shell or a console that would allow you to navigate the disk, the hard drive of the computer. So the hard drive of the computer would contain a file system, and then the command line would allow you to browse that file system by using text commands. So you'd enter text, you would submit it to the computer. The computer would try to understand what did you mean, and then it would try to provide you with an answer on the screen or with an audio signal, usually on the screen, also in a text form. And since the command line interface is really old, there are a lot of things and useful tools around it, and it really makes sense for a creative technical person to learn command line, because then you get access to all these libraries and all this cool stuff that is built to be used in command line. Basically, most of the modern web design is based on command line tools. So the development cycle is completely overwhelmingly taken over by command line tools. So you can write your code by using command line text editors, and you can use all kinds of the so-called linters in order to support your coding practice, live syntax checking, and so on. So this is maybe not so much related to command line, but still. So command line tools are there also to automatically indent your source code files so that they match a certain code style, for example. Then you can use all kinds of job schedulers, or so like Grunt or Gulp, for example, that would So if you use some intermediary code in order to write JavaScript or web components, then you can use these sort of command line tools in order to create an automated process which would compile these intermediate files into HTML files, JavaScript files, and CSS files. So automatically, then you could automatically also, let's say, publish it on your website, or integrate in other solutions like mobile phone apps or desktop applications. So if you know command line, then you have a lot of opportunities, a lot of options for automating your day-to-day workflows, and creativity. Your creativity is the only limit to that. So yeah, and then just after the command line interface, there was a graphical user interface, and as Alan Kay, one of the inventors of the graphical user interface, stated in one of his presentations, one or more, the graphical user interface actually is not the most efficient interface, and that the initial idea about the graphical user interface was that it would be built for kids. So the kids would have an easier time to get around their computers.
Yeah, kids after that.
Yeah, and then a command line can be very efficient. So it's a bit more to take in, so it takes longer time, and it takes some time to get comfortable with it, but then it's really, it's rewarding. So, and then the next thing that I wanted to talk about is how to get to it in different operating systems. So I'll transition to this screen. So here I have two virtual machines running on the desktop. One is Debian Linux, and the other one is Windows. And if you're using Linux, like Debian or Ubuntu or any other, then a terminal is built in, and it's usually very easily accessible. And in Debian, you usually need to click on Activities and type terminal. So there's definitely a shortcut, which I don't remember anymore. And then when you open the terminal, then a window like this opens. So you will recognize the command line by seeing characters like this and a blinking cursor, or sometimes it's not blinking. So on my Mac, like, the terminal is over configured, and you will see that how it looks a bit later. But yeah, so you can, for example, list your files. You can see where you are on the disk, and you can move into a directory, for example, or you can go a step back. And yeah, this is how you get to terminal on the Linux machine. But then on Windows, so I mentioned DOS, and the original Windows command line is DOS based, and it's not so nice, and it's not very much used unless you're a system administrator who has to deal a lot with Windows. So for most of the development tasks that you would do with command line tools, you would use something that is based on Unix or Linux, or something that is Bash-like. So Bash is a variant or a version of the shell of the command line. And there's a tool, it's called a software package that's called Commander. Let me find the website of it. So it's a console emulator or command line interface emulator. So here, it's Commander.net. And so here on my Windows virtual machine, I have the full version, which also includes Git. So I recommend, if you have a Windows machine, I recommend to download this one. Because in the next Fab Academy Thursday series, you will use Git. And then you'll just skip this extra step of installing it, or trying to find ways how to install it. So you can download and install it, and it's right at your fingertips. And yeah, when you open it up, Yes. So here you go, and you can basically execute the same commands. And instead of having the Linux path type, so if you now go back to Linux and you type pwd, which stands for print working directory, then you will see something like this. So a forward slash, the first forward slash, which denotes the root of the system, then a directory name, then another slash, and then my username. So basically I'm in my home directory here. And then on Windows, there are these Windows specific paths, which starts with a partition. So disk, partition on a disk, and then there's this semicolon and backward slashes. And Windows generally use backward slashes. But you can use list command, and then you can move into bin, for example. And you can move back, and you can ask, who are you? And the computer will respond. So yeah, and then of course git. So this is a regular way how you can tell which version it is. So, and here also, yeah, you see that on Linux I have an older version, could upgrade it, but not now. Yeah, and then lastly, the Mac. No, not here. On Mac. So I use a software that is called iTerm, but you could also just go with the regular terminal, which looks like this. So it looks weird because I have a Z shell installed with the all my Z shell extensions. So on the regular terminal, it looks yeah, it's missing characters and all that. But if you would open it on yours, it would look as normal as on the Debian side over here. So yeah, I think that it would make sense that I would show you all the examples on the Debian virtual machine instead of mine. But basically, I can use the same commands. This iTerm version of the command line, it just looks a bit prettier. It's more like a hacker movie, you know. It's important. And yeah. So yeah, I'll just go back to the Debian installation over here, and I'll hide all the others in the background so you don't get too distracted. So yeah, I use the clear command to clear it. And yeah, so now I want to show you some really basic commands so you can slowly start to wrap your head around using command line, and you will realize that it's not that difficult at all. It's like meditation, so you should perceive, if you've spent 15 minutes with the command line every day, then it can be a very rewarding experience after a month. So what I just did, yeah, I cleared it. Then let's start with a command that is called pwd, which prints the working directory. So this is what it stands for, print working directory. So I'm in my home directory. ls stands for list, and I can see all the directories and files in the current working directory by executing this command. And I could go into the desktop, for example, and execute list and see that there's nothing there. cd stands for change directory, and if you use it in combination with a directory name, with a directory that resides in the current working directory, then you are going to move into that directory. You're gonna set the current working directory to the directory that you passed to the command. Then you can use double dot in order to move one step back in the hierarchy, like this. And then you can use cd. Let's check out what's this pygen in order to move into another one. Yeah, so we can see. Yeah, so there are all kinds of files. And you can use ls in different forms. So there's ls, which is just a plain program, and it will use its default settings to display files. But for command line tools, you can also use things that are called flags. And for example, if you flag, because it looks a little bit like a flag, so you use a dash and then something, so it's kind of floating after the name of the command line program. So -L stands for list, so it's going to display all the files in an organized list with some extra information about them. So for example, what are the file permissions? So these are usually grouped in 3. So this is for the owner. So this is for the group, and this is for others. No, wait. How was it? So this is for the creator. Then this was for the people inside your working group, and this was for everybody else. And the read, write, execute. So if you see a letter R, that means that the specific person or a specific instance is going to be able to read. W stands for write, so that means that the person is going to be able to write, and X stands for execute. And then you can see, so I'm not sure what this was, but you can see the owner of the file, and then the group where that is. So usually it's the same thing. So the owner itself, and then the group, and then the file size in bytes, and then when it was created here. And if you see a letter D, that means that it's a directory. Then if you use ls with A and L, that means that you will be able to see all files, even the hidden ones in the directory. So you see that some files with a dot in front of them appear, like this jitignore. And if I move a directory up, then you'll see that there are like some SSH, git config, so these kind of things. There's usually this bash rc file, so where you specify the configuration parameters for your command line. Yeah, so this might look a bit complicated, but it's actually not. It's just, you're giving commands, and then some text or table-like or less table-like is just being thrown back at you. Yeah, and let's say I'm navigating really deep into the file system, and I would like to get back to the home directory. So now I am here, but I can tell that by using print working directory command. But I would like to get to my home directory, which is home Chris, in one go. And the easiest way to do so is just to execute command cd, or change directory without any parameters, and you're there, like so. In order to make a directory or a folder, we can use the command make directory. So mk stands for make, and dir stands for directory. And I'm just gonna call it test, and a list, and then I'm gonna use cd to move into that directory. And of course it's empty if I execute ls. And in order to create file, one of the ways how you can do that, you can use the command touch. And then you also add the file name of what that you want to create, and it does not necessarily need an extension, but it's always better to give one. So file txt, like a plain text file like this, and if I list, it's there. And then the easiest way to add something is to echo in it. So echo command, then what you want to say, like hi, and then you can add a line. You can replace contents of the file by using this single chevron, and then double chevron if you just want to add line, and then file txt. And in order to read the file, you can use the cat command. It's not related to cats. I think it's for, what was cat? Categorize? Concatenate? Okay. Could be. Yeah. But you can, yeah, so cat says hi. And then let's echo another line in there.
My name is Keo.
Who?
Nothing.
Who? Yeah, and then cat. Like so. And let's add your name is cat. Like so. Now we have 3 lines, and then with this one we can use an interesting command that you can use to look for certain lines in a bigger file. So for example, I'll introduce you to the concept of pipes. So in Linux and Unix systems, on command line, you can pipe the output of a command into another command line program by using this pipe symbol. And then there's a command grep, which is going to look for a term in a file, in a text file, or anything you pass into it, and then it's going to return the line where that name is. So yeah, so we are looking for the word cat, and it's returning us the line with cat. And then here I'm also using the up and down keys on the keyboard in order to get the previous commands. So if I can, they're always saved, and if you don't want to type them from scratch and you just want to repeat them, you can just press the up arrow and you're gonna see the previous commands. And then if you use echo, with a single chevron like this, then it's going to overwrite everything in there, like so. Then another way to edit the file is to use the simplest text editor that is out there, which is called Nano. So it's available on all the command line tools interfaces that I just introduced. And in order to edit the file, you have to type Nano as for the name of the software package, and then the file that you want to edit, and it's going to give you kind of an interface. And here the thing is, so if you will try to use your mouse, it's not going to work. So since this is command line, you can use only keyboard. And why this is easy and so intuitive is because the people who have used to use graphical user interfaces, as me for example, so I didn't start with command line, I started with Windows and graphical user interface, and it was hard for me to get into it. The thing is that you would expect that when you're using arrow keys, then you can move the text cursor in a text editor, whether it's Notepad++ or Text Wrangler or Sublime Text or Atom, so whatever. And then you would use Enter in order to make a new line. And yeah, and then you can add text. Like so. Yeah. And then you can see all kinds of hints what you can do with a file that you have just opened. So you can get help, you can write out. So write out means basically the same as save as. So you need to use Control and O, and it's going to ask, Nano is going to ask what is the file name that you want to target, and obviously it's the same that you just opened, and you could also just write it out to another file, but normally you would want to write to the same file. And then there's Control X that lets you exit it. So yeah, so these were two different shortcuts to exit the file, to save and exit, but you can also, so I'm going to open the file again, like so, and I'm going to add another line. And you can also just go straight for the exit by using Control X, and it is asking you whether you want to save the modified buffer, and you usually have to type Y to tell the Nano that yes, you want to do that, and then it's going to ask you for the file name, which is again the same as the file that you just opened, and you just hit enter. And then you can use cat again in order to see the contents of the file, and you can use cat with grep, and yeah, so I want to also show you how it looks like if I have two lines which contain the same words. So let's change this C to capital C, Control X to close, yes to save, enter to confirm the file name. And so now I use cat to read the file, and then pipe it into the grep command, and I'm looking for the cats term. So you see it outputs all the lines where there are cats inside, where there's the word cats. So yeah, so what else? So you can also use the copy command, so CP, to copy the file into another file. And now you have two files. And you can use the echo command. To overwrite. To write over the file. Like so. Yeah. And you can also, so there's in command line, there's not really a rename command, but instead of rename, there is move. So move file. In order to move, you have to provide two parameters, the file you want to move and then the file name or the location on disk where you want to move it. So file copy. So let's say settings. And now you have two files. Then you can remove files by using the rm command. And unfortunately, it is not. There's no recycle bin for it. If you use rm, then it's like it's gone. So there are, of course, like advanced ways how you could get back it. Probably like there are people who have deeper understanding of command line who could show you this trick, but I'm not sure. Yeah, and then you can do the same with directories as well. So let's say I'll make a folder, and I will go into this folder, and I will create two files, file 1, file 2. I'll go a step back, and so I can move the folder. So now I just renamed it to dir, and then I can also move it somewhere else. Like let's say one level up and call it so you see it's not there anymore, but it's one level up. And then I can copy the file, the directory A. And yeah, copy is going to complain because there are files inside, and you have to explicitly tell the copy command to do it recursively, to copy all the files that are within the directory with the directory. And now we have two. Directory and directory A. And if you will try to remove a directory, it's again going to complain that so remove is generally used to remove files, and it's generally going to complain that it's not being able to remove, but there's a command that's called remove dir, remove directory, and it's going to complain that it's not empty. And if you have situations like these and you cannot really figure out what you should do, so then usually each of these commands provide a help file, and there's a manual system. So you type man and rm, for example, and it's going to give you a description of the command. So rm stands for remove files or directories. Then the syntax is rm options and then the file name. And then here is a list of options or flags that you can use. Yeah, it's the force, but what we are looking for is actually this recursive flag, and also actually the force flag. And in order to exit this, you need to hit quit, or Q. And so let's remove. Let's remove the directory A first. Yeah, and then let's use rm dir to remove the directory.
Can you tell me that you started with the graphical interface, but I started with this?
Yeah?
Yeah.
And?
With ages.
Okay.
I don't like. I think they might have like also those in the school, but I don't remember. At least I had this Olivetti laptop. It was so ancient that it was black and white, not even green. It
okay.
Was just, like calculator. Remember the calculator? It's only gray and black were the numbers. It was something like this, and I couldn't figure out anything else to do with. But the directories, I started to create a family tree based on the directories there. I couldn't figure out anything else to do with it because it didn't have any programs or whatsoever. It's just like basically empty.
That could be a very fun activity, I guess.
Yeah, and
in a rainy day when you're alone at home, nothing to do.
Do you remember 286 computers when they came?
Not really, no.
We had the predecessor of that, 66.
66. Okay.
Company, they bought it for bookkeepers.
Yeah.
It's all green, this kind of old style monitor, and I don't know what you can else do it, but I remember seeing these kind of things.
All right.
This here. And then we have the printer with the holes in the side.
Sounds
and
good.
We got the internet connection, and
Okay.
we nobody else knew what we were doing. So okay, let's go for internet for the first time with the dial modem. I don't know where we went. Half an hour, probably cost like a fortune back in the day. Didn't learn anything, but we went to internet. I don't know, probably 88. Like that.
Then there wouldn't be any Chrome or any Google around, so you need to type in like.
I don't even remember how we got in there.
Okay.
I don't even remember what was the interface.
What's the deal there? So you type an IP address and the response hi.
Yeah, basically.
You just connected to this and this server.
There were web pages.
Already, okay.
But I think it was not maybe 86, but 87, 88, something like that. Way back.
Interesting. So, and then, yeah, let's check. I just wanted to show this last example with the remove directory. So let's check the manual file. So what are the options? So I think you cannot really use RM directory unless it's really empty. So RM, just plain RM is more useful than RM directory, but for the sake of clarity, I'm just gonna like to finish this up. I'm gonna move into directory and I'm gonna remove both of these files. And the interesting thing about command line is that instead of typing both of these files or using two separate RM commands, I can use a star, like this asterisk, in order to target all files in the directory. So what I just wrote is the command rm dot stands for the current directory, / stands for that, all the I'm kind of trying to access something in that directory. I could target for file 1, let's say, but I want both of them, so I can just add this asterisk and it's gonna remove all the files for me. And now it's empty. Now I can go one directory up and I can use rmdir to remove the directory. And now it's as it was before. I'm just going to remove the test as well. Okay, so thank you. So this was like a really basic introduction to command line. And what we are going to do in the following lectures is we are going to make a use out of Git a little bit. Yeah, just to remind you that so these lectures are to kind of introduce you to the topics that could make your life easier as a Fab Academy student. So if you're interested to apply for it, so applications are now open for the year 2020, and yeah, just go to this list, look for AutoFabLab, or you want to go anywhere else. There are plenty of a number of other nodes, but yeah, AutoFabLab is cool. So come here. So thanks for watching, and see you next Thursday.